Here's where it happened. For half a year, South Waterfront was said to be peaceful on the news. Portland leaders insisted there was law and order, but the quiet was misleading. A recent review of police and city data shows police were called to the same few blocks, Bond, Bancroft, and Moody, over and over for noise, fights, welfare checks, and over 133 times for disorder since the protests began. It might help to set a baseline. Before the protests in May, there were 32 calls where officers were dispatched to the area. That amount might seem excessive in itself, but it's mostly normal, the kind of background hum a city learns to live with. But by June, protests began in earnest. Those calls jumped 140% to 77 calls. Through the summer, the pattern held. July, 60 calls. August, 70. September, 75. And these are only calls in which the police were dispatched. Residents in the area told me that most calls ended without an officer ever arriving. And for the people who lived here, it felt like abandonment. Meanwhile, the city swept the growing Antifa camp from the sidewalk every few weeks. Rapid Response, a private contractor, is reported to have cleaned the camp at least 12 times, likely costing taxpayers over $50,000. Yet through all this, local leaders told a different story. On October 7th, Congresswoman Maxine Dexter, who represents this area, said this.
Dexter, Oregon's 3rd, here on the Broadway Bridge overlooking a beautiful day over peaceful Portland. And let's be clear, they are trying to tell a story, a reality TV story for a reality TV president that has nothing to do with the reality here on the ground in Portland.
Meanwhile, 3 days later, the mayor claimed he wasn't covering for Antifa. He called it a made-up story to create an opportunity for the federal government to, quote, come in.
Of course, I reject that we're covering up for a made-upon disparate group that has no real central organization or anything like that, right? We all know it's made-up stories to try and create an isolated opportunity for federal government to come in.
10 days later, Mayor Wilson published an op-ed in Newsweek calling Portland misunderstood. He said it was compassionate, calm, unfairly caricatured. But police records from around the days these politicians spoke show arrests on the very blocks they were defending. Then came the weekend everything flipped. October 25th and 26th. MAGA-aligned groups arrived at the ICE facility saying they were there to defend ICE from Antifa. Within days of MAGA groups setting up their own tent encampment, Portland police cleared the sidewalk completely. They announced they'd be enforcing noise and disorder laws, and they wanted sidewalks clear and protesters quiet after 10 p.m. Later, the mayor told the Oregonian, quote, "It all comes down to safety. We saw it grow to a point where there were arrests, fights, criminal activity. But the data shows those same arrests and fights have been happening for months." Through the summer, Portland's leaders built a story of peace. That unrest was imported. That the city was calm and safe. But when citizens and independent journalists began documenting reality, the fiction totally collapsed. For residents here, this was never theater. It was always their street, their safety, their city. And it was their government who didn't act when the data showed a problem. They only acted when denial became impossible.
Everything I told you